Welcome back. My name is Tim Lagan with MCTV Channel 15. We're here once again with Dr. Woolger of Woolger International. He's got a lecture that he's performing February 25th at 8 p.m. at the Academy Art Museum. Very few tickets are left. Dr. Woolger, the name of the lecture is?
Beyond Death, Does Consciousness Survive?
Okay. So what are you going to be presenting?
Well, in the last 20-odd years, ever since a man called Raymond Moody wrote a book called Life Between Life, there's been a lot of interest in what's called near-death experience. People who are in car accidents, they rush them to the hospital, and then suddenly they flatline, and they work and work and work, and 10 minutes later they come back. Now, what happened in that 10 minutes? The person who revives will often tell a story that they were outside of their body, they were looking down on the people operating them, and they were hearing the conversation, but suddenly they weren't there.
Right.
And then they see themselves going through a long tunnel.
Right.
And a feeling of transitioning, going to some other place. And then they come out of the tunnel into a place of light. And classically, they meet what look like dead relatives. Their grandfather, grandmother died a few years earlier. Their sister who died very young. They're all there. It's like all the family is there.
Meet them how? I mean, how do they meet them?
Well, what are they meeting? Are they spirits? Are they visions? Are they dream forms? But they claim that they are meeting what look like their dead family.
Right.
And collectively, you'd have to call them the ancestors or something.
Sure, but I'm just trying to get. You've talked with these people.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So specifically beyond meeting them, what do they say? They conversed? Do they say that they shook hands? Do they say that they just saw them?
Yeah, good question. The person who has, quote, died, clinically died, and left their body and gone to this other place, they repeat that they're in a kind of a dreamy state, and it's like a waking dream, and they're not quite sure where they are, but they're not in a state of consciousness where they can have a detailed philosophical conversation. I mean, they've just died after all, so they're a bit distressed.
Right.
Okay, but the way these characters on the other side often behave is they're very welcoming. And they're very reassuring. And one of the common experiences is that when they've gone through the tunnel and when they're on the other side, they feel a state of great peace. And that the others on the other side, they're kind of a welcoming committee. You're coming to be with the bosom of your family, but in another realm, what traditionally might be called a spirit realm. And then frequently, they kind of look back at where they've come from. They look back to their time on the earth. They dimly see their body down there on the operating table, but they know they've left.
Right.
And then frequently they get, this is very common in the literature, they see all of their life laid out before them. They get a kind of review of their whole life.
Right.
Right from childhood through to everything, things they'd forgotten. And they get, at that point, they get to review it. And they get to see good things they did, bad things, serious mistakes, things they're ashamed of. And sometimes it's like a good confession. They start to feel very sorry for things they've done and wanting to apologize. And occasionally one of these beings from the other side, an ancestor, will come and sort of put a hand on their shoulder or will comfort them and say, it's over, don't worry anymore, no one's blaming you, it's finished.
Right.
Then what happens is that they're shown those who live on the other side. I had a case like this in my practice. She was shown all her dead relatives, and then she was shown those that she was leaving behind on the earth. She'd been in a car accident, and she was about to, it seemed, about to leave behind a young son who was only about 6 years old, and a husband. And then she saw others, children who had died young on the other side, and she sort of saw there were two families. There's one up here and there's one down there, and she had to choose. And she chose to come back to be with her son on the earth. And then the vision came to an end, and and then she woke up on the operating table, and they say, my God, we thought you died, but you're back.
This is fascinating.
So there's this out of the body, or in this between the two, the 10-minute chunk, the consciousness goes into some whole other realm and has these experiences. And they're very common. They're not uncommon at all.
Now we've been hearing, and we've got to get this moving, but we've been hearing about this type of phenomena for a while now. I think since the 70s. Is there anything new in the field as far as the visions that, or the things, the spirituality things that people go through when they die? Is there anything that's gone beyond the light, gone beyond the families that you'll be discussing in the lecture?
Yeah, I'll be quoting from an extraordinary near-death experience of a man called Benedict Mellon Thomas, who had a very long time out. I think a couple of hours or something, and he came back.
Wow.
And he didn't just meet ancestor spirits and dead family. He was given a tour of the whole universe. He went everywhere, and he was shown a kind of a mandala. A mandala is a ritual circle, and he was shown this huge mandala of human souls and how they're all connected. And he was shown that we are beings of light, and that the whole universe is a light structure ultimately. It confirmed a lot of the ideas of the nuclear physicists, like David Bohm says matter is just condensed light in the end.
Right.
But a whole, what you call metaphysics, a whole view of the cosmos came back with him. He published it, and the researchers said this was one of the most elaborate near-death experiences we have on record.
Right.
It's like there are levels of reality in this greater world and more refined perceptions. He was very, very lucid in this experience.
Right.
And since he came back, he's written it up, and he tries to teach people not to be afraid of death because it's very beautiful on the other side.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now, there are two other aspects of this. The Tibetan teachings.
Yeah. We were talking about my education. After I'd studied psychology, I also spent a time in graduate school studying other religions. I've always been interested in religious experience, and I studied the Hindu tradition a bit, and later the Buddhists. And there's a famous book that has been translated in the last century that the Tibetans use to counsel people dying, to prepare them for this transition.
Right.
Because if you die suddenly, like in a car accident,
right,
you may not be clear that you're going to some other realm. You may be in a state of shock. And the Tibetans realize that it's very important that you die with a clear frame of mind. Because if you don't, if you die anxious, if you die terrified, if you die angry at somebody, you tend to take that state of mind with you, and you don't see the beauty on the other side. You just see your own stuff mirrored back to you.
Right.
So they have these prayers. They're a bit archaic today, but there have been modern versions of them. And they talk to the person dying, and they say, you beloved friend who are about to die, be prepared for what will happen when you go beyond your body.
Right.
You will see light, but you will see beings, and some will be friendly, some not so friendly.
So there's still the good and evil on the other side? Is that
well, it's not so much good and evil as more psychologically. You will see your bad deeds, they're mirrors of you. What you see, often they're your teachers showing you something about yourself.
Right.
It's again evidence that consciousness after death is not simple. Many things could happen.
Do you find when you give, excuse me, when you give these lectures, people walk away with a sense of comfort and feeling better? As we get older, I can't help, it's happening to me. It's we think about death more. I mean,
absolutely.
Do you find that you see when people leave these lectures that
many people are comforted. Some remain skeptical, and some are frankly scared. They just don't want to look at it. And there's no question that we all carry different kinds of fear about death. So it's a tricky subject. But many who have been present with a beloved who died, or have sat in a hospital with somebody dying, they've often noticed strange things. They've been sensitive to energies, and what they thought they saw is often confirmed by what I have to tell them.
Great.
So yes, there is comfort for some people, and The other source of information, we've been doing regression work for many, many years.
Your regression therapy.
We take people back to past lifetime memories, and people, when they remember a past life, will also remember how they die. And the way people die in past lives and go to the other side is exactly the same as reported in the near-death experiences.
Is that right?
They report leaving their body, sometimes a sense of relief, oh, that life is over. Sometimes, oh, I can't leave yet, my children are in danger. And we get the phenomenon, it looks as though the spirit or the consciousness of the dying person will not leave the earth because they've got to help or protect or finish something on the earth, sometimes revenge.
Right.
They killed my family, I want to kill them. And that seems to explain, and we don't have a universal theory for this yet, but it seems to explain why there are ghosts. A ghost seems to be, from my point of view, from seeing this for many, many cases, a ghost is someone who, first of all, dies in a state of confusion, and they wake up, as it were, on the other side. They don't recognize relatives or helpers over there. They're still obsessed with the life they left behind. They're not accepting that they're dead, and they're still looking for the buddy on the battlefield. They're still trying to get back to the house that they never returned to. That's the theme of the Nicole Kidman film. And they hang around the house or the place that they think they belong to, not knowing they're dead.
Right.
People who've tried to talk to ghosts find it very frustrating because ghosts just, they don't recognize other people. They're caught in their little dream thing. And when we do counsel ghosts, and there are people, ghost busting is real, you can do it. And Hollywood is bringing out a few films about it. You have to literally tell them, you're dead, you don't belong here. And go up to that place of light or go to some other place to be with friendly family members. You don't have to stay around here on the earth.
Right.
And then they will leave. Now, some people like their ghosts. I gather you've got one in the theater here.
Yes, I like she's an actress.
People don't want them to
performer,
go.
So
I mean, they add a lot of local color. And same thing in Britain. They celebrate their ghosts quite a lot. But really, they are what, in another tradition, you would simply call lost souls.
Right.
They are spirits that of people who've died and don't know they're dead, and they come back to a familiar place. And we see other versions of this when we've worked with people who have had relatives die in hospital. We often find, because of the high technology and the high use of drugs with people who are very sick when they're dying, a lot of people die unconscious, which is the very opposite of what the Tibetans try to achieve. They say you should die consciously. You should be aware you're dying so that when you wake up, as it were, on the other side, out of your body, we've given you a kind of roadmap, what to expect.
Right.
But if you die heavily sedated, life support machines, you don't know where you are at death.
Right.
And what we find when we've tracked spirits after death, they will follow the family home. I remember working with one man who was very obsessed with his grandfather. His grandfather was a very special man. He was a financier, and he always honored his grandfather, but at the same time, he felt that he was somehow in his grandfather's energy still, his grandfather. And when we tuned in, we actually got the grandfather hovering above his funeral and looking down and seeing his body go into the coffin. And we didn't know what this was at first. And then he sees a young boy standing very close to the coffin at the ceremony, and the grandfather goes to be with the young boy. And when the boy grows up and becomes married and has a child, the grandfather then goes from the son to the grandson. And it turns out that the grandson was much more interested in the same things that the grandfather wanted.
And you say you
to
caught
do.
this? You saw this?
Well, this man had a vision. During what we would call a regression. He was in a kind of hypnotic trance. And he, as it were, channeled the grandfather's memory. The grandfather sort of showed him, this is who I am, and this is how I'm with you.
Right. Okay. Dr. Woolger, this has been really great to have you here. It's very interesting work. Once again, Dr. Woolger will be at the Academy Art Museum